Yes, welcome in one and all to the NFL at Full 10 Yards podcast. I'm your host for tonight, Timothy Lambert-Monk. We're going to recap the weekend's action and take a little look at the playoff fallout. So strap yourselves in and enjoy the ride.
Hey, we're rolling. We drive all game long. Stay tuned, man. We got something special for y'all today.
You're listening to the Full 10 Yards podcast.
To the 10, right to the 5, scooting in for the score. Touchdown.
Yeah!
Touchdown indeed. There is a reason why I'm in the hot seat tonight, and although you can see Mr. Blundell obviously to the left hand or right hand side of me, depends if you're watching in a mirror or not. I don't know if that's what you like to do. Yeah, that way, I don't know. But that's not just because Shaun started his new job today and spent most of it watching NFL in 60. He told me it's just so that we don't have a podcast dominated by the Cleveland Browns and obviously Kieran for the New England Patriots and whatever tunnel Mr. Retro wants to take us down. But that aside, Shaun, how are you?
I'm very well, mate, thank you. And thanks for sharing the joys of my first day back at work. So, yeah, it was very nice this morning to set the alarm, knowing that the Browns are at 9-3. We'll talk about that plenty, but all joking aside, just a big thank you to you in particular, mate, over the last few months. You and the boys here at Full 10 Yards have kept me going. It's been a strange experience being out of work. Big shout out to my best friend Rachel as well, who I know is watching along. She's kept my spirits up throughout as well. It's been a tough old time, but yeah, back at work, back in the saddle. Didn't think I'd find a job that I could watch NFL for most of the afternoon, but I seem to have obviously landed on the perfect one, mate. So bring it on. Looking forward to it. Just
one night. Watch anymore. You'd be Scott Hansen, 7 hours of commercial free football, wouldn't you?
You've got it, mate.
Absolutely. Joining us in the huddle, as always, is Mr. Retro. Like he said before the podcast, he wants to get out of his sharpest, but he took us down a memory lane just before we came on, so that's why we're a minute late. But Mr. Retro, Lawrence, I wonder why you want to get out of here early tonight, because Baltimore are playing tomorrow. They're not playing tonight, you know that, don't you?
I've still got some love. It's got to be done. Look, and there's me Ravens top in the background. So, yeah. You have full consent to call me fickle, but yeah. I'm having fun at the moment. I got both my teams still to watch this week, so it's pretty bizarre feeling. Just wanted to say something very, very random, as I've never done before, anything random. My personal highlight of the weekend that's just been wasn't actually anything NFL. It was Liam Gallagher trying to pick a fight with the London Eye. I don't know if any of you saw. He did a concert on a boat traveling down the River Thames, and he gets to the London Eye, which is all lit. It's all dark. The London Eye is lit up pink, and he goes up to the London Eye and goes, "Hey, lit up, round, off." He's picking a fight with the London Eye. Only Liam Gallagher is going to pick a fight with the London Eye. So that absolutely made my weekend. But we'll go back to football now.
Yeah, I've literally no idea anything you're talking about. But anyway, the only thing I know about that is the high flying birds or something. Anyway, but that's not for this podcast. That's for something else. And then, as you can see, bottom right hand corner of your screen, Kieran Patson, happy once again. We'll get to the Patriots later. But how are you doing?
I'll introduce myself with a question. What's undrafted, the defensive player of the year this year, and has 7 consecutive picks? Anyone know?
You might have mentioned it, mate. You might have mentioned it.
There's only one, JC Jackson, my friends. What a weekend!
There we go. So bringing the fire, bringing the energy. That's why we love him on this show. But like I say, we are going to be going all the way through the week 13 action and have a look at the playoff ramifications. So let's start off then in the AFC. One of the bigger games, obviously one of the first ones on Sky Sports, Browns and Titans. I've put in brackets here, Shaun, 6 minutes for total. So hopefully we won't be here in an hour's time. But obviously the main story from this one, Baker and the Browns cooking in the first half, 38 points on the board. Break it all down for us.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, we have a bit of a laugh and a joke about it in terms of the long suffering of the Browns fans, but I've got to be honest, it's an absolutely amazing thing for me to be involved with this, because there's such a group of us that are all in the exact same situation. we've followed the Browns for years, and I'm talking to people who've followed them 11, 10, 12, 20 years, and people have never seen a start like this. So you have to, excuse my excitement a little bit, fellas, because I just don't know how to react to this. But in terms of this game itself, I previewed it on a Titans podcast, and I said for the Browns to win, they need to get up early, take Derrick Henry out of the game, and essentially play with scoreboard pressure. Not in my wildest dreams did I think we would be 38 points to 7 up at halftime, and Derrick Henry was basically a non-factor in this ball game. It was just perfect offensively. Scored on every single drive they had in the first half. Dropped a would-be touchdown on the opening drive of the game, and that's to settle for 3 points. But Donovan Peoples-Jones dropped a surefire touchdown. Possibly got a lucky break then with a generous spot, it's got to be said, from the officials on a 4th and 1. Derrick Henry, one of those probably wasn't the greatest of camera angles. If anything, the camera angle made it look more like the line to gain was reached, but the Browns took full advantage of that march down the field. Trick plays involved Jarvis Landry throwing the football again to Baker Mayfield, and then Mayfield returning the honour to get Jarvis's second consecutive week with a touchdown. Came back then, with another score. It was just every time they got the ball, you just thought they're going to score. They just looked completely unstoppable, and they weren't even doing it with the ground game. As you said, Tim, it was all Baker Mayfield. The Titans absolutely sold out to stop the run, and Mayfield just tore them apart. The question has been for the last few weeks, can the Browns get it done on the arm of Baker Mayfield? And, it's only 1 week, but if you were looking for the answers to that question and you were basing it on what you saw yesterday, then the answer categorically is absolutely they can get it done. The second touchdown of the day was a big man touchdown to Kendall Lamm. Again, another sort of gadget play, if you like. Apparently he was only installed into the offense this week. Everybody sold out on the run. I mean, if you actually watch Baker Mayfield complete play action, he confuses everybody, confuses the cameraman quite often. Nick Chubb sold it really well, also diving over a pile of linemen that was absolutely nowhere near the ball, and Kendall Lamm snuck out the back door and was found. We then had a sort of long Titans drive that was very explosive, couple of plays, huge one to A.J. Brown, who, that was probably the only significant play he had on the day. But high pointed the ball. That covered about 40-odd yards, and then the very next play, I think A.J. Brown was actually the intended receiver, but he fell down, and they found Corey Davis in the back of the end zone on a nice play. And all of a sudden you thought, hang on, suddenly the Titans are clicking here. But the very next play from scrimmage, everybody was basically in on pass protection apart from one receiver in the route. Double move, looked like it was going to be an out route, and then he turned it upfield, and Donovan Peoples-Jones trotted for 75 yards untouched, nobody anywhere near him, and the Browns just didn't look back from there. Rashard Higgins scored the next one, Nick Chubb added one on the ground, and like I say, it was 38-7 at the half. A lot of people are going to probably make a lot of fuss about the second half. If you look at the final score, it was 41-35, and people are going to turn around and say, well, Cleveland capitulated in the second half. They were just about clinging on come the end of it. And the scoreboard would suggest that, but don't let that fool you. This was a comfortable Cleveland win. The second half, they really were their own worst enemy. Most of the drive started with a penalty, and that essentially made it difficult. They were obviously a lot more conservative with their play calls in the second half, as you would expect, but they still moved the ball relatively well. There wasn't any real major concerns. The Titans still struggled, to sort of move it with consistency. And actually 14 of those Titans points that are on the scoreboard came in the last minute and a half. Yes, I know they all count, but like I said, this really was a comfortable Cleveland victory. Everybody said moving into this, the Browns have beaten nobody. Everybody said they hadn't had a statement win. Well, I would argue they beat the Indianapolis Colts, which looks like a good win. Certainly now, if this was supposedly a really difficult game headed in, this is a significant win. And whether people want to believe it or not, and I appreciate that you've still obviously got the Bills to play tonight who could move to 9-3, the Cleveland Browns have got the third best record in the league. They've got the third best record in the AFC, and it's only because of the fact that obviously we're in the same division as the Steelers, who obviously are unbeaten, and that's why we're obviously still battling, if you like, to secure a playoff spot. But in most divisions, 9 and 3 would be comfortably in the lead, and I think people will be giving the Browns a lot more credit than what they're actually being given credit for. Now, we've now swept the AFC South, we've swept the NFC East. Well, apologies, we've still got the Giants to play in the NFC East, and that is looking like a more tricky game than it possibly did on paper a few weeks ago. We'll talk about them later, but that defense is playing well. But there is still a game against the New York Jets on the schedule, and I've said you can pretty much chalk that one up. Yes, I appreciate you've got to play the game, and who knows, but let's face it, everybody, I think, would be sort of assuming that gets the Browns to 10 wins. Even if they don't win any other games, they've got tie breaks over the Colts. They've got tie breaks now over the Titans. The only team they don't have a tie break against is the Raiders, because the Raiders won that head-to-head game. But bear in mind, if the Browns win one more, the Raiders need to win at least 3. I've got all the fixtures here. I don't know if you want me to run through that now, Tim, because obviously we're at the playoff picture, or you're going to come back in on that. But that is favourable to the Browns as well. So all things looking rosy. In terms of Tennessee, they still lead the division in terms of tiebreakers with the Colts. The records are now tied at 8 and 4, and obviously that's going to be a scrap for the next few weeks to figure out who's going to end up playing who. But certainly from a Cleveland perspective, great performance. Great to get Myles Garrett back in the lineup. He had another sack yesterday. Was a constant menace. Was questionable in terms of the officiating. I tweeted something there where he was basically having his face mask ripped off, and it wasn't called. It was fairly blatant, and that seemed to be a theme throughout the game. But all things certainly, like I say, pointing in a positive direction for the Browns. And if your Cowboys can win tomorrow night, man, do us a favour. That'd be much appreciated.
Don't bank on it. Like I say, Browns fans all over Twitter peacocking like an ostentation of peacocks. And why is it an ostentation? Because I looked up Google and I googled what is a group of peacocks called. But there we go. I mean, if that's a good, I suppose you'll be happy because I'm googling what is a group of peacocks called. And the Browns are doing well. So there we go. Yeah, but Browns Twitter are more than happy. But obviously we've got ramifications on the other side of that. Obviously with the Tennessee Titans losing Shaun. Colts obviously squeaking past the Texans, a lot closer than many people were probably thinking going into that game. I know on the betting pod, obviously, I had the Colts on the handicap, but it wasn't until Deshaun Watson on the final drive for Houston kind of sealed the deal for the Colts on that one. T.Y. Hilton turning back the clock in probably what will be his best game for the season until they play probably in about 2 weeks' time. 8 receptions, 110 yards, and obviously the first touchdown scorer on that one. I think it was the first touchdown score in red zone as well. If anyone had, I can't remember. But anyway, obviously the ramifications of that is that the Titans and the Colts obviously still now battling out for that 4th seed. So as a current 5th seed, Shaun, it's probably looking likely that you will be the 5th seed. Who would you fancy as taking on in an away game in January? It looks to be between the Bills, the Colts, and the Titans. Is there any particular one that you would like, or is it just a case of sod it, we're in the playoffs, we've not been here for God knows how long, and just give me who you got? Because I say you've got the head-to-heads over the Colts and the Titans, and I don't think you've played the Bills this year, but I don't know if there's a particular team you fancy, or if you'll take on anyone.
I think it is just that, mate. Take on anybody, to be completely honest. I've not allowed myself to get too carried away. I'm pretty much thinking that we're there now, but we still obviously haven't got it signed, sealed, and delivered. It's frustrating because in a lot of years, 9 wins would probably get you in, and here we are at 9 wins and still aren't quite sure. I'd honestly take anybody. I don't think, and I sort of said this in jest last Wednesday when I watched the Steelers and the Ravens. That was an awful game, and I know it was a lot to do with the disruption and the players that were playing in that game. But the Cleveland Browns are probably, on current form, as good as anybody in that AFC North, as far as I'm concerned. That might be slightly biased, but I'm sorry. I know the Steelers are 11-0. They seem to be getting a pass for the same schedule that the Browns are getting criticised for beating. Everyone's raving about the Steelers being 11-0. They've played effectively the same teams. And I don't think they've been particularly impressive over the last few weeks. Yes, they've got the job done. The only team that I really fear in the AFC is the Chiefs. I think they are head and shoulders the best team in the AFC. However, with that being said, they were pushed close yesterday by the Broncos. So that's the beauty of the NFL, isn't it? Any given Sunday, anybody could beat anybody. You know, it was perfect for Cleveland yesterday. Like I said, the game plan couldn't have gone any better. You know, like I said, take Derrick Henry out of the game, and effectively that really limited what Tennessee could do. Yes, they've beaten Indianapolis early in the year. Does that give me any confidence that they'll go and do it again? It'll be another Sunday. It'll be a different ball game altogether. So let's get there first and foremost. I'll take on anybody. Like I say, to be honest, I was delighted last week that we couldn't lose this season. I'm thrilled this week that now we've got a winning season. If I can celebrate next week that we're there, I'll take that. And then, like I say, whatever happens from there, we'll take it from there.
Yep. Okay. Take it from there. Indeed, two teams that are going to be taking it all the way down to the wire for the number 1 seed in the NFC. That's a professional link there, isn't it? The New Orleans Saints and the Green Bay Packers. Lawrence, obviously, Saints beating the Falcons in this one. A couple of passing touchdowns from Taysom Hill, which I know you commented on. I can't remember if it was our WhatsApp group or on Twitter. I think it was on Twitter actually because I remember it. And then 21-60 in the final in this one. The Falcons nearly coming back though.
Yeah, I mean, if we kind of just come back to the start of this one. So looking at that win streak, it's only just behind the Steelers. So that's 9 wins in a row now for the Saints, including 3 consecutive under the leadership of Taysom Hill. And I'm waiting for the collective boos from my fellow podcasters because I know you haven't got any love for Taysom Hill, but I actually do have a little bit of love for him, surprisingly. I mean, don't forget, this is the Saints defense that until the Falcons scored their touchdown in the fourth quarter, that hookup between Matt Ryan and Russell Gage, New Orleans hadn't allowed a touchdown since Nick Mullins threw one on the 15th of November. So they've gone 14 quarters without conceding a touchdown. So it's not just Taysom Hill kind of just about dragging them through. It's that number 1 defense. We're talking about the Steelers defense. It's getting all the headlines, but the Saints defense has been playing pretty much lights out for the last month. And yes, Tim, Hell did clearly freeze over. Taysom Hill and his milky white guns through not 1, but 2 touchdown passes. And yes, we all know that famously it's the first one that he's thrown since 2016, since he was at college. But, you know, let's all calm down. It's more important that he's taken the Saints to 3 wins than how many touchdown passes he's thrown. That's immaterial if the team keeps winning and they're maintaining their number 1 seed at the moment. Taysom had a pretty decent game. 27 out of 37, 232 yards, 0 interceptions, only got sacked twice, managed to run the ball quite successfully. And yes, it's a bit of a magical mystery tour, kind of when Taysom Hill drops back, but that's kind of, you know, it's entertaining. He doesn't make too many mistakes, and I think that's what's kind of holding him through at the moment. His second touchdown was to Jared Cook, who's had not exactly a brilliant season, but it was nice to see Jared Cook getting a touchdown. And the Saints, they kind of extended their lead that they had at halftime. Early in the third, decent drive. Alvin Kamara runs up from 11 yards away. Kamara was held to under 100 yards total offense again. And I think that's pretty much killed off his MVP type opportunity for this season. If Drew Brees would have still been throwing to him, it's very possible that he would have been in that MVP race. But I think because of the way the game plan's played out, he's no longer in that MVP running. And yeah, with a 12-point lead, the Saints should have absolutely finished off the Falcons. But somehow Matt Ryan and getting Julio Jones back was great. Calvin Ridley had quite a big game, had some nice catches. And then Russell Gage gets that score. It's 21-16. Things are suddenly closing up. And then Julio has the chance to get the winning touchdown, but the ball comes off his fingertips in the end zone. Really exceptional coverage from the Saints safety, Marcus Williams. If you rewatch that play, Marcus Williams was absolutely on him, and you know, no pass interference, no risk of great piece of individual coverage. And even then, the Saints had to punt again, and the Falcons got the ball left with a few seconds left. Matt Ryan tries a Hail Mary, but it was a bit Brad Bobley in the end zone, and no one ended up catching it, and that was all she wrote. So that's the Saints and Falcons game. And then we're talking about the other top seeds.
Wait. Before we get to the Green Bay Packers, did anyone else notice that Lawrence called Mr. Jones Julio Jones? I didn't know his middle name was. Julio. Sorry. Go on. Green. Obviously, Green Bay beating Philly. Lawrence. Obviously, the big story we'll get to a bit later on in the podcast about Wentz being benched. 6 of 15. He didn't even get to 100 yards. Obviously, Aaron Jones kind of sealing it. He was quite close towards the end there. Long Aaron Jones run sealing it. Another touchdown for Devontae Adams, and Aaron Rodgers obviously hits the 400 club. Talk us through it.
Yeah. I mean, I was watching this on my wall, so it was my wall game. It was my kind of second window wall game. So that's kind of normally reserved, for the game I'm looking forward to the most. So it was a fun game. If you're a Packers fan, that is. And then it suddenly started getting interesting in the second half. I mean, I have to admit, I took absolutely immense pleasure watching Carson Wentz continue to stink. 6 out of 15, 79 yards, sacked 4 times. He's joined the 50 club now. He's been sacked 50 times this season, which is just goddamn awful. His previous high in terms of being sacked was last season when he was down 37 times in 16 games, and he's now managed to do that in a lot less. And prior to this season, we've got to just remember that in terms of his interceptions, he's leading the league in interceptions with 15. Even more than Drew Lock, which is, a bit of a shock. But in the last 3 seasons beforehand, Wentz through 7, 7, and 7 interceptions. So he hasn't even got anywhere near 10 interceptions in his previous 3 seasons. So something's clearly wrong with him. And, by comparison, if you look at the amount of interceptions thrown by Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, and Ryan Tannehill put together, between the 3 of them, they have thrown 11 interceptions in 1,200 pass attempts between them. So that is how horrendously bad Carson Wentz is playing at the moment. And then it must have been a mighty relief for the Eagles fans when Doug Peterson finally yanked the ginger statue in the third quarter, down 20-3, and replaced him with Jalen Hurts. And his first pass attempt, just to make Wentz feel really, really great, was a 34-yard bomb and a completion to Jalen Reagor. That was his first attempt as a quarterback, not playing in a sort of gadget play, actually legitimately taking the ball. And then a holding penalty by the man with more hair than Rapunzel, Isaac Sumalo, killed that first drive. And then going into the fourth quarter with a 20-point lead, Packers were absolutely kind of smiling. You could see Aaron Rodgers kind of relaxing. They're all just kind of chilling out. Everyone's smiling at each other on the sideline. And then suddenly Hurts hits Greg Ward in the end zone, 32-yard touchdown on a 4th and 18. So when kind of literally everyone's given up, the people that would have been in the stadium would have left by now. But there we go. Touchdown. And then Packers go nowhere on the next drive and then punt. And then what happens? Jalen Reagor returns the ball 73 yards for a touchdown. And suddenly, like Cheeseheads fans are going, what on earth's happening here? And then the next drive, Packers go 3 and out again. And you're thinking, oh my God, what is happening here? And then mercifully, the Smith brothers, Preston and Zadarius, combined for a sack on Hurts and kind of stall that momentum. Otherwise, it really could have absolutely flipped at that point. And then what comes was arguably probably behind a Derrick Henry run or two, one of the best rushing touchdowns of this season or kind of any season really, which was Aaron Jones' 77-yard run. That was just a stunner of a touchdown. Him kind of zigging and zagging all the way through, and kind of that was it. And then once that touchdown happened, it was all over. And then I was kind of watching the post-game press conference with Doug Peterson, and he was asked after the game if Wentz has been looking over his shoulder all season. And Peterson, don't forget, he won a Super Bowl just 3 years ago, said the question was too hard to answer. Oh, too hard to answer. Commit yourself, man. Just say yes or no. So, in other words, yes, he has been looking over his shoulder all season. You saw that play when Hurts threw the touchdown and Wentz kind of gave a little gentle clap on the sideline, but it was kind of like the clapping of a man on death row, just locked eyes with the executioner. It wasn't exactly a pleasant clapping. Wentz has been absolutely awful. The Eagles have been awful. Hurts really needs to start for the rest of the season to see if this is the man that the Eagles are going to start building around. I think, pulling Carson Wentz is a big thing, and Peterson knows what he's doing. But if the stats don't lie for this season on Wentz, and I think it's time to give Hurts a bit of an outing and see what he can do. Coming in down by 20 against the Packers in Green Bay against Aaron Rodgers is not exactly the ideal way to start your NFL career. But Hurts didn't look intimidated, and he gave it a real good go, and he brought a spark for, until that Aaron Jones touchdown, he had that spark going, and it was things were turning around. It was quite scary. But, let's pay respect where respect is due. Aaron Rodgers had another great game, 295 yards, 3 scores, 2 to Devontae Adams, should have been 3, in fact, and 1 to my boy, my tight end of the year, Mr. Robert Tonyan. As you say, Tim, fastest quarterback to reach 400 touchdowns. And whilst I was talking about Kamara a couple of weeks ago for MVP, are we now bringing Aaron Rodgers into that MVP conversation?
I don't think he's left it, to be quite honest. But just a quick one. I know me and Kieran had probably fisticuffs to the level of the Bengals and the Dolphins a couple of weeks ago about Hurts and Wentz. So I'll come to him shortly. But obviously you've got the Saints and the Packers seeds 1 and 2. Is it just between those two for the number 1 seed, or is obviously the Rams and Seahawks at 8 and 4?
No, this is definitely a race between the Packers and the Saints. I was looking up the schedule in terms of what's left, and strangely, they've both got one team that is actually they've shut their facilities down. It's the Panthers. They've got 8 players now out on the COVID list. DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel's kind of their number 1 and number 2 receivers. So it's going to be Robbie Anderson all the way. So if he's about the only guy left catching balls. If we just break down kind of the 2 teams' remaining schedules and records at the moment, you've got Green Bay at 9 and 3. They've got the Lions. They're home against the Panthers. They got the Titans, and then they go away to Chicago. So legitimately, I can see that them finishing 12 and 4. I can see them losing to the Titans. I can see them beating the Titans, but let's say we put them at 12 and 4. Then if we look at the Saints, 10 and 2, they've got Philadelphia away. They're at home to the Chiefs. They're at home to Minnesota, and then they travel to Carolina in week 17. So I've got them winning 3 out of those last 4. So I'll put them at 13 and 3. So I've got the Saints maintaining that number 1 seed. That week 15 game against the Chiefs is absolutely massive for both teams. It's the Chiefs still haven't secured the number 1 seed by any means, and they're going to need to win that big game. So I've got the Saints eking it out, but they're going to make it interesting by coming back late in week 17 against the Panthers, a late touchdown to win the game and get that number 1 seed. So there's my little prediction.
Cool. Just before we get to the NFC West update, is there anything you want to sound Jalen Hurts, Kieran? Because I know you're a Jalen Hurts guy. Or maybe just anti-Wentz guy.
I don't want to be that guy. I told you so, but I told you so. He came in.
You haven't told us anything.
I said Wentz sucks. Put Hurts in. He came. Look, this guy's got a huge chip on his shoulder. He's played in national championships. He's been benched in national championships. He's had to transfer school just to get a chance to be a starter again, right? Now he comes on, replaces probably the worst quarterback in the league right now, bar none. I think Wentz is worse than Dwayne Haskins, and that really is saying something. The whole team, he looked like he galvanized an energy. That whole team played better. They were terrible when Wentz was on the field. Hurts come on, they played better. They had a touchdown return. He threw an absolute dot into the end zone. His first completion was a back shoulder throw that looked absolutely fantastic. The only problem is Wentz is in the owner's ear. So Doug has to be very, very careful what he does when you've got a quarterback whose contract is like $150 million or some garbage like that. Yeah, right above me. His contract is so much that Doug Peterson's got to be careful when benching him, when everyone outside that organization knows that benching him is the right decision. If I am the Eagles right now, I trade Wentz for a 6th round pick or a 7th round pick. Just get out from under that contract in any way possible. Get some more parts for your O-line, get some more receivers, and maybe take the team back to an NFC championship.
I mean, yeah, okay. Now, I'll give you, when Jalen Hurts come in, I agree with Lawrence. Gave a spark to the team. Everyone was galvanized, and whether or not they feel that that's because he's the guy to take them forward, I do not know. But when the thing that's Lawrence said at the very top, Wentz has been on his ass 50 times this season, right? It doesn't matter who's behind that line; they're all going to get dropped on their ass. And Jalen Hurts.
To be fair. Probably 25 of those sacks are because he holds the ball for too long.
Yes, no, I get that.
You can only blame the line for so much. Yeah,
absolutely. But JJ, it doesn't matter. Even if half of those were Carson Wentz's fault, you can only do so much behind a crappy O-line that's got more holes than a cheese grater. He came in through some absolute dimes, and I was impressed with the touchdown. Was it throw to Greg Ward on the towards the end of the end zone? I don't watch a lot of college. I don't know too much about Jalen Hurts, but all I know is it's amazing that when quarterbacks do come in or quarterbacks make their first start, there's not a lot of tape of him in the NFL. There's not a lot of tape on what he probably a lot of him does. But when there is, he's just going to hit the same wall that the other quarterbacks are going to hit. He might make a few plays, he might not. But I just don't see ceiling wise. He's not going to do anything meaningful. I agree. The Philadelphia Eagles need to get out of his contract. No one's going to be buying that. No one's even going to be offering a 6th or 7th. No one's going to be wanting paying what Carson Wentz is going to be commanding for a couple of years of his contract. And we all know that going into to make Super Bowl runs, you have to take advantage of rookie quarterback deals. So I totally get it. I don't say that bringing Jalen Hurts is the wrong decision to bring him in. I just don't think he's going to do any better behind. What are you trying to achieve? You've got no supporting cast. You've got Jalen Reagor, who threw a nice touchdown to, but you've still got, you're trying out all the tight ends. You don't know what the hell they're doing. Dallas Goedert's obviously a good one, but they need to get rid of Zach Ertz at some point. The running game is they've activated Jordan Howard. They don't know what they're doing in the running game. Is loads of running back by a committee crap. It just all comes to the top, and we'll talk about head coaches on borrowed time in a little bit, but it's just let's just until Wentz is out of that quarterbacks that slot there, the Eagles are in trouble, and Doug Peterson's in trouble. It's great because it makes great content, because obviously everyone's going to have their own opinions, and Eagles Twitter is fun at the best of times. But let's move away from the NFC. Let's go to the NFC West, Kieran, because again another reshuffling of the deck in terms of positioning. Rams beating the Cardinals 38-28 in this one, knocking Arizona to the 8th seed. Is that them done now at 6-6? Obviously, this was 17-14 going into the fourth quarter, and then they shared 35 points, but it was the Rams that won it essentially with a Troy Hill pick six late in the fourth. Yeah,
I would say Rams' running game looked spectacular. They just went off this game, and Cam Akers looked fantastic. He had a great touchdown, as well as I forget his first name, Darrell Henderson, I think it is. Yeah. He looked fantastic as well. But look, I said this before the season, and I don't want to be. There we go. We got the Cam Akers shoe.
That's worth more this week.
Does it smell good, mate? We look, I said before the season, I don't like Cliff Kingsbury as a coach. I know everyone's now wants the new, 18-year-old, can't really grow facial hair sort of coordinators and coaches I'm not one to talk. These young guys in the league, everyone loves them. LaFleur, McVay, Cliff Kingsbury, and I think Cliff Kingsbury is the worst of this sort of new breed of coaches. He came off a losing season at Texas Tech, and he's got this weird air raid style offense that is kind of similar to like Mike Leach and other college guys, and I think it translates to an extent in the NFL. But when you've got the talent he has on that team, you should have a way better record. I think that team works better with a West Coast offense, a more traditional coaching scheme, and just let the players run to their talents. Instead, look, Kyler's got a big arm, but you can't expect him to air it out the way he does every single game. In terms of top level quarterbacks this season, he has a decent amount of interceptions, and I know that's kind of like risk reward type thing, but I don't think Cliff Kingsbury is the right coach for this Cardinals team, because if they had a coach like Shaun McVay or Bill Belichick or just one of these guys that really is a genius in the way they game plan, I think they would probably be like 10-2 right now. They are extraordinary. So yeah, NFC West is a very interesting division because it is very talented. Besides, the 49ers are not having... We'll see how they get on later, but the 49ers got a major Super Bowl hangover, lost a bunch of players to injuries. But besides that, as a very, very talented division. And with what the Cardinals have on paper, I think they should be better. I know... Look, Cliff Kingsbury's had 2 years with Kyler now. He should be seeing... Look, Kyler's great. I'm not saying he's not, but they should be doing more than they're doing. They shouldn't be sat at 500. They should have a winning record, and they should be top of that division, besides maybe the Rams, because Shaun McVay is just an offensive genius, and his defense is one of the best in the league. The NFC West, just for me, is... Look, it's not the NFC least, but...
Never end of that, mate.
but you've got the Rams sort of... I know the Seahawks are 8-4, but they are not a good team. I'm going to have to go back on everything I've said the previous weeks. They are not a good team. That defense is terrible. That defense is hurting them so much. And they added some big weapons like Jamal Adams and stuff, but it's just not enough. And I don't think get rid of Cliff Kingsbury, you'll be better. Seahawks, rebuild your defense, you'll be better. And the Rams just need to keep doing what they're doing, because they've looked fantastic all season. We saw that in the win over the Bucs. They know how to game plan. So this division, when the season started, I was very, very excited about. I thought this may be the toughest division in football. I'm not going to say AFC North, because I honestly thought that was going to be a terrible division this year. I thought the Ravens were just going to run it. But it's turned out completely differently. That division is now the most competitive in football, with the Browns, Ravens, and the frauds trying to, vie for a playoff position. And now you've got the NFC West that I thought was going to be the best division in football, really, really middling, because the Seahawks have got a record they don't deserve. The Cardinals have got a record that doesn't reflect how much talent the team has. The 49ers have, a bunch of players missing limbs at this point. And the Rams are just running away with it. They're the only really team worth their salt in this division. I
look forward to next week. I look forward to next week when it's all flipped on its head and the Seahawks on top and the Rams are third and all the rest of it. But they're not going to be third. But you know what I mean. But talk us through obviously the Seahawks. Then obviously they got upset by the Giants, knocking me out of survivor pools absolutely everywhere, including the full 10 yards one. Well done to not the Shaun sitting next to me, but one of our talented writers. What was the final score in this one? I haven't got it in front of me.
It was 17-12 to the Giants.
There we go. Yep. But yeah, I mean, if you're looking at seedings, it's not really an upset, is it? Because the Giants are the 4th seed. I jest, of course. Yeah. But I tell you what, though, that Giants defense is. The Seahawks would love to have that Giants defense, wouldn't they, Kieran?
Yeah. Is it? I think it was Shaun who said in the group that Giants defense sort of shown up to make a playoff run as they do every few years. We saw it in 2011, 2007. They kind of just turn up late in the season and make a playoff bid. And that might happen again, which is, imagine if they did that behind Colt McCoy. The Browns would be furious. You know, a quarterback who, he's not a good quarterback, but he's a very good game manager. Meanwhile, I was saying that about Baker Mayfield 2 weeks ago. So, but yeah, Colt McCoy came in. His completion percentage was horrible, but he moved the ball when they needed it moved. Obviously, Wayne Gallman, 135 yards, really just said, hey, Saquon, you're not having your job back when you get healthy. But yeah, the passing game really wasn't much to speak about. Colt McCoy, moved the ball around when it needed to be moved around. And, you know, Russell Wilson had the same passing touchdowns to interception rate as Colt. So, it's it's bad when Colt McCoy is carving up your defense, a man who, when he gets sneezed on too hard, he will go unconscious. So, you know, it was one of those games that was really, really ugly to watch and really unappealing football game. But you think, it's kind of interesting. And yeah, Giants well-deserved win, honestly. The Seahawks really need to be embarrassed with themselves after this, because this is, like I said, this was like watching two Sunday League teams have a kickabout. Everyone looked hungover. Everyone kind of, you know, had a few too many pies the night before, and, you know, too many shandies and a few too many cigarettes.
Hey, well, you leave those shandies alone.
Yeah, I'm not going to say anything more about shandies. Both teams looked like they just didn't want to be there. And, you know, Giants well-deserved win. They are now the top team in the NFC least. 4th seed in the NFC. Imagine your division is so bad you can be the 4th seed at 5-7.
Imagine.
Oh
in all seriousness, absolutely huge win for the state of that division. But Lawrence, you were
just a little shout out to a guy who I reckon 99.99% recurring of any fantasy player of the entire season. If anyone picked Alfred Morris on their fantasy team, I want to meet them and shake their hand. And don't forget that this is the same Alfred Morris that has got in his wardrobe. He's got a Washington shirt. He's got a Dallas shirt. You know, he's trying to complete like the entire NFC East. So he's got to be signed by the Eagles next season as their short yardage back. And, you know, hell, they need one. So you might as well like do all 4. So yeah, just a little tiny shout out, because we're not going to be talking about Alfred Morris again for the rest of the season, if not ever. So just, you know, well done to Alf for his little special 2-touchdown cameo.
It was, yeah, and if anyone doesn't know about there's a story about his car. He always kept his first car up until a couple of years ago. Go and search that one on Google. It's a good story to go and read. In answer to Ross Sterling, how is Mr. Unlimited's MVP going? Not very well, Ross. Not very well. Let's wrap up the rest of the games. And I put this section as the get out of jail free wildcards, little Monopoly theme on there. I don't know if anyone noticed that, but Vikings and Raiders obviously thick in the playoff hunt in terms of wildcard aspirations. Getting away with it, to be quite honest. Both teams, Vikings needing 2 overtime possessions to get over the plucky Jags, up to now the number 7 seed overall. And I tell you what, Adam Thielen and J-Jeff keep going the way they're going, and they're adding obviously the hard running game of Dalvin Cook. They are 32 attempts for Dalvin Cook on the ground. They are going to be quite difficult to stop if their defense can bend but not break. But Mike Glennon for the Jags, looking as if it was going to be a massive win away, and it did look like it was going to actually be a hindrance with, at the time the Jets were winning against the Raiders. He goes and marches down the field, down 8 with the 2-point conversion as well to take it to overtime, but then he goes and throws a pick as well, almost as if he was told to, but they obviously stay at 1 win. And then the Raiders kind of pulled the rugs under the Jets carpet, didn't they? Woo. Staying at 0 wins for the Jets. Greg Williams obviously been fired since the aftermath of that. Adam Gase, yes, still in his post. I wonder how many seconds after the number 1 overall pick is confirmed for the Jets that he gets booted out of the Meadowlands. But 31-28, the final in this one after a 46-yarder from Derek Carr to said Henry Ruggs, obviously the first round pick, first wide receiver off the board in the 2020 draft. I don't think he would have been more wide open if he was on the moon, to be quite honest. Just call an all-out blitz and the cover 0 on the final play of the game. Sod it, why not? But Jets, gave it a good go. Ty Johnson and Sam Darnold had the Raiders on the ropes for pretty much the whole game, to be quite honest. But it has to be said, the Raiders, after their shellacking last week against the Falcons, they are currently 7-5, 8th seed looking on from the outside looking in. They do not look convincing. They need a Colts, a Dolphins, or a Titans slip up, I think, to make the wild card and January football. But it can all change. To say this week, this time 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, we were talking of the Las Vegas Raiders as being a decent team or a tough team to play in January, but obviously not looking that way. And now, other couple of games to get on with. We'll talk about the shutout in Los Angeles, shall we? 45-0, New England Patriots. I mean, I said this on the podcast on Saturday with Adam. I couldn't understand why it was only the Patriots were, I think, was it -1 or they were +1? It flipped, and I just could not understand. I could not understand that one at all. And Anthony Lynn, Kieran, is he on borrowed time?
He might be out of there, because I like Anthony Lynn. Let's make no bones about it. He's a great coach. But with the talent he's got, I think maybe give him another season, because Justin is a rookie. You've got to cut the kid some slack. He is a rookie. And I don't think you should necessarily fire a coach if he's having a bad year of a rookie quarterback. I don't think that's necessarily fair. But that being said, both Cam Newton and Jarrett Stidham both had more touchdown passes than Justin Herbert. Look, I've been saying this. Stidham's the new starter for us. King Stidham, 2 for 3 and a touchdown, 61 yards. Cam Newton, 12 for 19. Do you know how many yards Cam Newton went for through the air?
10.
69 altogether, gentlemen. 1, 2, 3. Nice. Damon Harris as well, 80 yards on the ground. Cam Newton had 2 rushing touchdowns. Gunnar Olszewski as well, 1 reception, 38 yards and a touchdown. And obviously the return was fantastic, but the Chargers couldn't get anything going. I mean, Herbert went for 209 yards, but he also threw 2 picks. And their ground game was kept, just under 70 yards almost. I think it was actually dead on 70 yards. So it was bad game for them. And I don't know whether it was the Patriots' defensive game planning, because it definitely wasn't our offense. That was bad. But JC Jackson, 7 consecutive pick. Chase Winovich as well had a pick. Chase Winovich is cementing himself as one of the top linebackers in the league right now. He comes off the edge great. He plays in coverage as well. I think there's not much Anthony Lynn could have done this game, I think, really, because when you look at Belichick's record versus rookie quarterbacks, it is exceptional. And especially with rookie quarterbacks, even if they've played a full 4 years at college, you're not going to understand the defensive looks in the NFL as well as you are in college, unless you maybe play Alabama every week, because they're like the only college team that really run like a pro defensive scheme with a lot of exotic looks, a lot of different covers, clouds, unders, overs, and all of this stuff. So I'm surprised Justin Herbert didn't get on the board, but also I say what Nate Diaz said when he beat Conor McGregor. I'm not surprised, mother flippers. I'm not surprised it was a blowout, but I didn't think it was going to be this bad. But yeah, Patriots defense is back. Chargers can bounce back. They have a lot of talent on that team. So I think we will see Chargers pick up a couple more wins this season. They'll be scrappy and they'll be fighty and they'll be tough. But I don't think they'll lay another goose egg this season. And I think might see, if we're lucky, Patriots make the playoffs, ladies and gentlemen.
Stop! I'll have to bleep that out. I need to get a live bleeper. Anyway,
20 years in a row? Is it 20 or is it 19?
I don't know.
It's 20, right?
I'm not a Patriots fan. Anyway, I have a question for Shaun at the end of this, but we'll come to Lawrence first. So I just want to mention, Kieran mentioned there obviously about Bill Belichick's record against rookie quarterbacks, but Justin Herbert's recent performances, many are calling it ever since he's had the much maligned haircut. 26 of 53 in this one for 209, like Kieran said, 2 interceptions, 31 of 52 for 1 touchdown and 1 interception versus Buffalo, and they didn't play the Jets very well either, and that's obviously the AFC East in the last 3 or 4 games. Any particular reason why Justin Herbert's hit a bit of a wall?
Oh, I mean, I think Kieran's really summed it up. I mean, if you come across, if you go from college, if you look at kind of his college touchdown to interception ratio, in 4 seasons, 95 touchdowns, 23 interceptions when he was in Oregon. He has seized his opportunity since week 2, since the trainer tried to stab Tyrod Taylor to death with a syringe. He's passed for 3,224 yards, 23 touchdowns. Up until week 13, unlucky for some, he'd actually thrown a touchdown in every game. So there was a number of firsts in this game. It was the first time that he hadn't thrown a touchdown. It was the first time he hadn't had a rushing attempt in a game. He's not a rushing quarterback by any means. He is a pure pocket passer. But, he has got a little bit of, wheels underneath him, but he didn't attempt a single run. And the scariest statistic out of all of them wasn't even the picks. It was the fact he was held under 50%. Of his passes. So it was just the Patriots defense was just played phenomenally. And yeah, I had them in most of my DraftKings lineup. They were dirt cheap, and what did they get? 30 points, I think it was, something crazy. So yeah, I was well on the Patriots defense before this massive blowout. So I'll pat myself on the back for that one. Aside from scraping past the Jets, Herbert has actually they've lost 5 out of their last 6 games. And what makes it a little bit scary for this, phenomenal rookie quarterback, in the last 3 games, he's been asked to throw 154 passes. 154 passes in 3 games for a rookie. That's just bonkers. And he's coming up to that kind of, it's the wall time, that rookie wall, about kind of getting there and outstretching your normal amount of games that you play in a year. Yes, that Kieran, you might say the rookie wall does it not exist, but there gets a point where people are starting to get a little bit tired. And in that period of those last 3 games, those last 3 losses, he's managed just 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So his pace has just kind of gone down. But it's bizarre because this is an LA team that could end up finishing 7 and 9, or they could end up finishing 3 and 13. You can't quite tell. You can't put your finger on what the Chargers actually are at the moment. I mean, look at what they did earlier on in the season. They took the Chiefs and the Saints to overtime and barely lost. The 2 kind of 2 out of the top 4 teams in the entire NFL took them to overtime. But now they've suffered their 2 biggest defeats in a row, and they've lost by a combined 55 points in their last 2 games. So things aren't looking particularly good, but you can't put this on Herbert entirely in terms of his performance. That special teams of the Patriots scored twice, and when your punt returner actually scores a 38-yard receiving touchdown, that's it. You just know it is not your day. And as Kieran said, when your offense has been sort of spluttering through the game and you win by 45, then yeah, big problems. I mean, we know the Chargers have got their future quarterback. They've just got to do a much better job with the recruiting the supporting cast to go with it now.
Yeah. And I'd say Ian David there on the comments says they need to say bye to Mr. Lynn. So I have a question for you, Shaun. Obviously, he's been waiting there very patiently. Obviously, we talked about Doug Peterson's on borrowed time, obviously maybe dealing one of his last cards in the pack in Jalen Hurts, putting him out there. My question to you is, who lasts longer, Doug Peterson or Anthony Lynn?
I think they're both last to the end of the season now. I don't see any reason why anyone's going to make a change. I think if they were going to do it, in terms of Anthony Lynn, it would have happened last night. I don't see why you're now going to do it partway through this week. I think it would have been an instant reaction if it was going to happen. I can see both of them being moved on from, to be completely honest. I was in complete disagreement, really, in terms of most of what you said there for a change. We usually agree on most things, but I'm not a huge Anthony Lynn fan at all. Okay, he's got a rookie quarterback this year. Last year, his excuse was he got the oldest quarterback in the league. So at some point, you just have to accept the fact that, he may well be a nice guy and he comes across as a genuinely nice guy. But is he a good coach? Does he put his players in the best position to actually get the wins? I would argue not. Lee, our resident Chargers fan, often complains about the play calling. I don't claim to watch tons of Chargers football, but every time I do sort of tune in and sort of catch highlights or see them in drives, you sort of question some of the things that you do see. And ultimately, they push teams close. They're in close games, but they always say, don't they, that the best sides find a way to pull out those close wins. The Chargers have proved now, unfortunately, not just this season. The reason they've got Justin Herbert was they were in the 6th slot in the draft last year. That suggests that they were pretty poor last year as well. For me, they are what they are. I think they're more likely to finish 3-13 than 9-7 or whatever the equation is that somebody threw up there. I mean, they may well fall somewhere in the middle, but for me, they will still continue to lose more than what they win. I think the future is bright with Justin Herbert. I would question why they left him in the game yesterday. Down 30 odd points, he's obviously rattled. Every quarterback is going to go through a bit of a learning phase. The worst thing for me that they could have done that yesterday was just basically keep throwing him out there into the fire, to essentially expose him to a risk of injury and all the rest of it. They should have just sat him down on the bench and said, look, it's not happening this week. Bill Belichick's done this to many a rookie quarterback. You'll have another day. Come and sit down. And that for me, look, is why Anthony Lynn is certainly on borrowed time. If you said to me out of the two of them, which one should go first, if there was a pecking order, I'd say Lynn should be the one to go first. Pedersen's going to get a bit of a pass because of his Super Bowl victory from a few years ago. But obviously, it's a what have you done for me lately league. So both are in real dire straits, aren't they? And, I would not be surprised at all if both of them were shown the exit door pretty quickly once the season's finished.
MP1023 obviously says the Chargers will be dangerous when healthy. I think that needs to be added onto the end by saying when Anthony Lynn will also maybe that's for next season when Anthony Lynn is not there. But thanks to you, thanks to everyone that's getting in touch on the socials to say anything that could prop up. We'll pop it up there and have a little chat. But let's get through the rest of the games. Then a couple of games left to get through. Chiefs second team clinching their playoff berth for the off season, beating Denver 22-16, despite a spirited effort from Melvin Gordon, who 15 rushes, 131 yards, included a couple of biggies as well. So fair props to him. Shaun, quick one: are they still the team to beat in the NFL, the Chiefs, or do you like the Saints or the Packers at the moment? I know you said that in the AFC you liked them over the obviously second to the Browns. Second to the Browns. But what's it all about for the whole NFL?
No, for me, the Chiefs are still the team to beat. I think they're the most complete team. They showed in that first quarter against Tampa Bay last year. They have the ability to blow teams away. And when needed, they can win ugly. Also, I really like the Chiefs. I think they obviously in an incredibly fortuitous position to essentially bring back a repeat team from the winners of a year ago, which it never happens, does it? There's always somebody that moves on or whatever. It's essentially the same lineup, if anything possibly improved in terms of the running back position. So, for me, certainly the Chiefs still the one to beat overall.
Yep. That's fair enough. And then to the the second iteration I hear is on the Anthony Joshua undercard next week. It's the Bengals versus the Miami Dolphins. I don't know if anyone's going to be buying tickets to that. I certainly won't be, because there wasn't a lot of fists. There was more. I don't really know what it was. It wasn't even handbags, was it? It was kind of little tote bags. I suppose it was tote bag fights at 10 paces. But yeah. Kieran, you look like a guy that likes his UFC and his fighting and his boxing. You going to buy, if this was on the undercard next week for Anthony Joshua and whatever dustman he's fighting, would you buy tickets?
What gave it away? The trashy tattoos or the scarred knuckles that I like fights? No.
You live in America.
We need. You'd be surprised. You need to, I think, at this point, let the guys fight. So at the beginning of the season, I went to watch I went to watch the Toledo Walleyes hockey team, right? The minor league hockey team. Just let them fight. Two guys get in a scuffle, let them punch each other out, take them out for the next 5 plays or whatever. Let them serve a mini suspend. Let them get back in there. Football is a violent game. Football is an emotional game. You should let these guys just throw a couple. Throw helmets if you want. Be my guest. That's stupid, but yeah, it was just a stupid little scuffle. No one should have got ejected. This wasn't, Cortland Finnegan versus Johnson. It was not. Just let the guys have a little scuffle, slap them on the wrist, let them get back in the game. I think that's part of, part of the sport is high emotions and there's a lot of violence. So I think they should have just let it go. But that side note, the weirdest thing about that hockey game I watched wasn't the fact they let the players fight. It's the fact that when the Walleyes scored, people threw dead walleye fishes onto the ice. So okay. Welcome to America.
Any more reason to go and watch a hockey game in where was that, in Toledo? Did you say
Toledo, Glass City, which I thought was because of the drug problem. Apparently, they just used to make a lot of glass back in the 40s.
There you go. Anyone wants to go and watch ice hockey, I suggest you go visit Toledo. I'm sure Kieran will put you up for the night. The last game of the to round up, Lions rebounding against the Bears. Mentioned it on the Saturday podcast, the betting. It's amazing what happens to a team when a head coach gets fired. Bears still in absolute free fall, although Trubisky and the boys pretty much threw that one away. Was it with a 4th down stop, and then the Lions did the rest. Matt Nagy, another one that's probably on the hot seat there with Anthony Lynn and Doug Pedersen. Since though Lawrence wants to go and watch his beloved Washington football team, let's get some winners and losers. Then we'll start off with Lawrence. Who is your winner? Who's your winner for the week?
My winner this week is the Colts. I think their victory over the Texans keeps them in the playoff hunt. And as we speak, right this second, they've got a 2-game lead over the Patriots and the Ravens. They welcomed Jonathan Taylor back, who got 135 scrimmage yards and a touchdown. DeForest Buckner was back with 2 sacks. The defensive line just absolutely stepped up. And they held the Texans, who have been performing pretty admirably over the last couple of weeks, to 0 points in the second half. Yes, there was a drive right at the end, but they held them to a goose egg in the second half. And I don't think you're going to see many NFL games where the second half total points scored was 2, which one of the bizarrest stat lines of the season. And I just want to give a tiny little shout out to tiny Kiki Kuti, the Texans receiver, who had a career high 141 yards and won me some cold hard cash. And if you followed me on Twitter, in the morning, I actually said some very nice things about Kiki Kuti and posted a little GIF of him. So there you go.
Yeah, indeed. And your loser?
My loser is the Cardinals. We've talking about this. I think the gloss has absolutely well and truly come off the beaks of the Cardinals. They lost their 3rd in a row and their 4th in 5. Jalen Ramsey had another absolutely monster game for the Rams, holding Nuke Hopkins to under 8 yards a catch. And in fact, if we look at Nuke Hopkins' stat line over the last 3 games, he's had a total of 158 yards receiving and 1 touchdown. He hasn't gone over 55 yards for the last 3 games. And we were talking about him as an all-pro about a month ago and about how outstanding he was. He's been pretty quiet in the last 3 weeks. Admittedly, the Cardinals have had a really tough 5-week stretch. Dolphins, Bills, Seahawks, Patriots, and Rams. That is a harsh set of games. The loss to LA was the worst defensive display they put on for about a month, and the defeat and a late Vikings win has pushed them out the playoffs if they started today. And the remainder of the schedule is not easy for the Cardinals. They're traveling to the Giants. They've got games against the 49ers and a rematch with the Rams in week 17. So, yeah, my loser is the Cardinals this week.
Lovely stuff. Shaun, winner and loser?
talked about it earlier on, mate. I think, for me, we talked plenty of Browns earlier, so I'm not going to repeat what I said. So going to go with Baker Mayfield. I think, shut the critics up this weekend. 4 touchdowns in the first half, the first Browns quarterback to do that since Otto Graham back in 1951. Baker Mayfield for me, the winner. Loser for me would be, specifically, I'm going to go with the Chargers special teams. Special teams often in a game that, by Kieran's own admission, even as a Patriots fan, the Patriots offense did nothing. Special teams is often the deciding factor when you give up block field goals, returns for touchdowns, you give up punt return for touchdowns, you miss field goals. Michael Badgley has been horrendous again this year, for the Chargers, and he's another one. I'm amazed he's still got a job. Kickers get cut left, right, and centre. So Michael Badgley keeps his job. God only knows, but specifically for me, the Chargers special teams.
Lovely stuff. And then Kieran, round us off with your winner and loser.
Was going to go for winner Patriots special teams, but I'm actually going to go for the New York Jets because they are still number one, going after Trevor Lawrence, the most beautiful hair in college football. And for loser, I'm going to go with the Denver Broncos because I expected a lot more from them. They are a very talented team. Just couldn't put. I know it's the Chiefs, but they just couldn't put it together.
No, fair enough indeed. Yeah, fair enough indeed. D's. No, I'm not going to say all of that, but Derek Henry, his loser this week as well. I assume that is in fantasy, but fair enough. Anyone else there with any winners and losers before we round out of here, we'll put those up. But we're going to round off as we always do with a stat. So I've given you one stat each to impress me with this week. No Dallas one's coming this week, obviously, because they played tomorrow night against the Ravens. So Lawrence, we'll start with you. What you got?
Darren Waller. We haven't even given Darren Waller a shout this week. He had an absolutely monster game for the ages. 13 catches, 200 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But I always got to throw a question back at you guys. Even though my beloved team are on the screen, I can watch them and talk at the same time. By the way, Ben Roethlisberger threw first play of the game. He tried to hit James Washington for about 50 yards, but it was incomplete. So mercy me. So where does Darren Waller's game in week 13 put him in terms of the top 10 all-time PPR points for a fantasy tight end in a game since 1950?
I'm going to go
rank him.
I'm going to go with
top 10.
I'm going to go with the Len 7 from Len 7.
7. Second, Shaun.
Fourth.
None of you were correct, but you were close there. It was 6th. The top, actually, is former Chargers tight end Kellen Winslow, who, just got to give a little bit of retro life here, 1981. He also had 13 catches, 144 yards, and 5 touchdowns.
Yep,
5 touchdowns against the Raiders. And in fact, Winslow's Chargers were down 21-14 in the second before he caught 4 consecutive touchdowns in the second and third and got the final in the fourth on a 55-21 route. So there we go.
There we go. As he peers down to watches Washington, his beloved Washington football team.
So I'm a happy man already.
There we go. All right. Kieran, what's your stat for the week?
Travis Kelce is the first tight end in the Super Bowl era with 1,100 receiving yards in his first 12 games of the season. Can anyone tell me who the prior Super Bowl era tight end was who held the record through 12 games before this season?
Tony Gonzalez.
I can tell you it was Travis Kelce because I've got the exact same stat written down.
There we go. Sure got it. Travis Kelce in 2018. 1,082 yards through 12 games. So I think we are watching a Hall of Famer.
Indeed, yeah. And just to say, there are two tight end themes there. Obviously, yeah. We didn't really give Darren Waller any love, but anyone in these fantasy teams, I'd be surprised if you lost this week. So there we go. But Shaun, he's stolen your thunder. Have you got a backup?
I did have a backup, mate. So yeah, let's kick the Chargers whilst they're down. The Chargers' defeat on Sunday was actually the heaviest defeat they have suffered in franchise history. Their previous biggest loss was a 43-point defeat when they went down 49-6 when they were then the San Diego Chargers way back, Lawrence, in 1964. Don't know if you remember the game, but yeah, 1964. That was the heaviest defeat in Chargers history up until a 45-point defeat yesterday.
There you go. All right, I'll chuck in a bit of love.
That might not be the case.
Ooh,
he's
I might be calling you out on that one.
He's calling him out. You are calling him out. Whilst you're flicking through, I'm just going to give a bit of love to Devontae Adams. He joins Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, Marvin Harrison, and twice for the Jerry Rice as a player to have 100,000 receiving yards and 12 touchdowns in the first 10 games of the season. Those other 4 players, all Hall of Famers. So maybe Devontae Adams, what a season he's having. Maybe he will be joining them at some point. No doubt. But that is pretty much going to do it for the podcast. Thank you all so much for joining us. Before we get out of here, guys, we're just going to do a quick round table. Obviously, Washington, Pittsburgh are currently in play, but we're going to go. I'll give you the games. You give me one-word answers on who is going to win. Washington, Pittsburgh. Shaun.
Washington.
Kieran.
Washington.
Lawrence.
Pittsburgh.
Jesus Christ. You might as well put that shirt on behind you, number 81. Jesus. Right, okay, let's go round Buffalo, San Francisco. Obviously, Monday Night Football. Shaun?
San Francisco.
Kieran?
Buffalo, and it's not even close.
Mr. Josh Allen over there in the bottom right-hand corner. Lawrence?
Buffalo.
And then finally, rounding us off, I know where this one's going. Dallas at Baltimore. Shaun?
Dallas.
Kieran?
The Ben DiNucci Cowboys.
Jesus Christ. And Lawrence?
The Ravens are going to put 50 on you.
I look forward to talking about that next week. Just out of interest, Lamar Jackson has just been activated off COVID, whatever it is.
As has Calais Campbell, as has J.K. Dobbins. Just you wait. Honestly, it's going to be fun.
If Lamar is back, Tim, I double down on Dallas.
Oh, make sure you join in next week's shenanigans on Monday at 9 o'clock. That'll be the first game we talk about, ladies and gents. There's going to be fisticuffs similar
fisticuffs
to the Miami and
Ginger Prince will be lying on his back sunbathing.
No, so it's going to be fisticuffs of the same milk of the Miami Dolphins and the Cincinnati Bengal game between all of us. So make sure you come and join us. Make sure you come and join the fun.
Handbags made of plastic. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. You can get us at 14 Yards on the Twitter. We'll be back same time at same place next week. But in the meantime, in the great words of Kevin Cadle, it's a bye-bye for now. A bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Full 10 Yards podcast. Follow us on Facebook or Twitter at Full 10 Yards or email the show full10yards@gmail.com.